Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Animation in Marketing. We are starting today with Misha Lagerstedt from Boutique Animation, and then we have Dermot Gallagher from Cocoa Media Productions. And today's topic is possibilities of animation in marketing and brand design. If you have any questions or any comments, please press the hand sign in your panel, and I will give you the permission to actually use your microphone and talk. No one's face is gonna go to the screen, so don't worry about that. And also, if you see there's the box questions, you can just write down your questions there, and I will read them out loud if you don't want to speak out. But Misha, are you ready to start?
Yes, I'm ready to start. Sorry, I'm just trying to find a place because
I will give you the control. There you go.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I hope you can hear me. I'm not, of course, hearing anything at the moment besides myself and my son, who is doing schoolwork in the same space. But yeah, so I hope
it's multitasking times.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. They are interesting times we're living in. But I'll just get started, and for some reason, if you can't follow me, if you can't hear me, then somebody will probably let me know. So first and foremost, thank you for having myself and Dermot today, and for allowing us to speak about a topic that is very dear to us. And as you know, we are going to talk about animation in marketing today. And our aim with Dermot would be to open up the process behind animation and kind of uncover some of the maybe myths that surround animation. I mean, animation is a broad term, and I think we all have a little bit of a different kind of take on what it actually means or what it entails, and or what it should mean or what it could mean. So I think we're just gonna give our view on the subject matter, the topic, and in doing that, I hope that we're going to open up kind of like a world of possibilities to you as well, because that's
Misha,
how we. Yes.
Please, can you share your screen, please? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes. Now I'm just in that same. I'm having that problem that I had earlier, that I can't see my cursor. So I don't know what you did earlier, but that at least helped me to access my screen back.
Can you see it now? Sorry, everyone. This platform is not our friend today.
Yes. Okay, show main screen, show my screen. Yes, are you seeing that now?
Perfect. Thank you, Misha. Yes, we are.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Good. Even though we had a test run this morning, it's still a bit new to us. So, but let's not let that hold us back. So where was I? Yeah. So we're gonna try and kind of give you an overview of animation, how we see it, and what it entails, and what kind of possibilities it could open for you. And Dermot's name was mentioned, and my name was mentioned. Here we are. Old picture of me. I still have hair. Dermot is as young and fresh as always, but Dermot's probably going to present himself a bit more later on. Me, I've been working with animation production for about 6 years now at Boutique mainly. Before that, I've been working basically my whole professional life with content production in one form or another, starting off from doing events and then moving on to doing like digital content, moving on to doing moving images, moving content, and then actually doing that whole tour of being on the agency side, and finally ending up back actually at a production company, which was Boutique. And this was back in 2014, if I remember correctly. But before going back and talking more about Boutique, I would just like to take 1 minute to talk about Boutique and CFX. We are both part of a media group called Kokoa. And it's not just us, but we're a multitude of companies or arms of one big group. So we have Kokoa Production, we have CFX, then we have Kokoa Play, we have Boutique, and now we also have FLC. So we are probably the biggest production company around in Finland at this point in time, and we cover all spectrums from live action to animation to still photography, retouching, post-production, and now also doing long format production. So the first film is actually in production. So that's just shortly about our group. And just some words about how we see this world. And I think the main giveaway is that to us, the world is a world of possibilities, and we thrive on collaboration and working together, not just with our clients, but also with other production companies or companies, stakeholders in general. Which brings me to my favorite topic, Boutique and animation. So Boutique is a animation and design studio. We've been around since 2007, and back in the day, it was known as Animaatiot Boutique. I'm not going to go into the whole name change and everything like that, but basically, for the last 5 years or so, we've been known as Boutique, and we have a long history. But I think the main thing about Boutique is that we've always had a very, very strong kind of anchor in 2D animation and maybe even like the more traditional form of 2D animation, which you could call hand-drawn animation. And one thing that to this day I think sets Boutique apart is that we are a bit more maybe experimental, a bit more quirky, a bit more kind of risk-taking than our peers, and that's something that we kind of take a lot of pride in. And we've throughout the years done loads of stuff. We've been fortunate enough to win awards along the way, but I think just to give you a short insight into what it is we are doing, I'm going to show you our latest show reel. So here goes. Yes, so I'm sure, or I'm actually hoping that some of those things that flash before your eyes are not completely new to you. That there were some familiar characters from maybe I think the last year. It's very hard since we're not having an interactive conversation. So I'm just going to keep talking. I don't know if you can kind of like send over questions or something, but that would always be nicer to make it more interactive. Otherwise, I'm just like hearing myself and talking. But I'm gonna continue. So what we do at Boutique is we do animation, but we work across all screens of media. So we do not just do TV, we do not just do digital, we do everything. Also going into AR and VR. And so again, wherever there's a screen, wherever there is a possibility for movement, that's where we like to be. That's our playground. And as I said before, we work in 2D animation, but we also do 3D animation, and then we do motion graphics. These are, I'd say, like techniques. If we would like to specialize in one thing, or like have one thing that's specifically ours, I think it's much like character driven and story driven, but still we do not like to limit ourselves just to one technique, but work across the board of animation. And I think that's a good thing about the market in Finland. It allows us to do that. We almost have to do that to stay, current, stay contemporary. You can't just, go into a little corner and stay there. You just have to be open to everything and also be able to do everything. So if you would like to break down animation into what it is, basically, it's an illusion of movement. That is what we do when we animate. We make things move. We use different tools, different like hardware, software to create the illusion of movement. And it can be anything. And that is again why we feel that animation is the most kind of, there are no limits or boundaries. We can make anything move. But it's not just about the movement, because basically anybody can create that movement. We like to take it a step beyond that. We like to give an object a character. We like to give it a soul. We like to tell a story through that object. And that is how you actually start, going beneath the surface of what actually good, high quality animation is. It's actually bringing movement to life, giving it a soul. And for us, that means that we've created these key principles of quality animation, which I'm just really shortly going to run through. So it's not just about the craftsmanship and not just about the eye for design. For us, it's also about the communication know-how. So we've been working with commercial animation for a long time, which also means that we understand the aspect of communication and how you take a message and how you relay that message through animation. That is very important. And I think that is why it's important to not just limit yourself. Another important aspect of animation is that it's actually acting. So our animators are not just people who are good at drawing or good at like creating movement. They are actually actors. They are an extension of the characters or objects that they are moving. And I think this is a pretty good example of just to illustrate how we see animation and movement. Here you have this guy. He's walking along. He's a character. It looks quite all right. Looks quite nice. he's in motion, he's going forward, his hands are moving, his legs are moving, his head is bobbing, but it's quite mechanical. There's not much to it. It's like just a repetitive walking cycle. But this guy, on the other hand, here we have an animated character who has a soul. You can almost feel what he feels, see that he's in a good mood, and I think that illustrates kind of like the what it is, what we're always trying to achieve through our movement, through our expertise, how we like to animate. But as I said before, one of the key principles was also design, and that's why we like to refer to ourselves as an animation and design studio, because we do quite a bit of design in-house, not just from characters but also objects. We have illustrators who work on these bits and pieces. And here are just some examples of where good design meets good motion and what it actually means and what it can look like. Flow Festival, we've been working with them for a lot of years. We've been fortunate to work with good agencies who do illustrations and do like these visual sorry, not finding the right words now. But we've been able to work with like nice visual styles, and so it's been a real pleasure to making that move. So animation is not just a character that moves, but it's also how, for instance, letters move, how they appear, and again, going back to design, what they look like. Here again, a good example of thought through design meeting good motion to create an overall look and feel and story that is interesting, intriguing, that you actually want to look at. And this runs through not just like the design of this, basically the house that is in the center, but it also looks into these UI elements, the icons, everything is actually made to look and feel as a united whole. Again, here an example of where we created like this look and feel for these animations for Fortum, where we actually went in and designed like these small elements, icons, everything specifically, first and foremost, of course, to be on brand, but also specifically for these animations to create this world where everything is nice, works together, unified. So I've scratched the surface of animation, what it is we talk about and how we see animation, and even a bit like of how we make animation. But in order to understand that a bit better, and I think for people who probably don't have that understanding of animation, I'm just going to try and open it up a bit more and going into the production process. And let's see, part of my screen is being covered, but I hope that you can see the last part of post-production there. But this is a process that we share with our clients quite a bit, just to open it up a bit more. Most of our cases, there might already be a script, there might already be an idea, there might be, usually we have a brief, we have an idea of what it is that our client would like to have done or would like for us to do or to help them out with. and when we get that, we start working on it and start figuring out and thinking about how would we make this work, and how would we make this into an animation that has the right look and feel, and of course relays the right message. So in the pre-production phase, I'm breaking it down into three different phases. The pre-production phase, that is where we're going to work on the script, which then is going to at a certain point turn into a storyboard, which is going to turn into an animatic. But we also work on the character design or the illustrations, or maybe if it's a whole visual world, we work on that and ending up in having style frames. And along the way, because we usually have voiceover or even some voice acting in there, we make these sort of placeholder voices so that we can start timing and start seeing how it all works together. So the process, pre-production, that is where we build the foundation for everything. It's probably the most important part in the whole process, at least for us. And the interesting thing about the pre-production is that is usually the phase that you are given the least time for. So that is something that we are always trying to get enough time to make the pre-production, so that we get the planning right and we get certain things in place before we actually go into production. And this is where animation and live action is very different, and maybe Dermot is going to touch upon this a bit more later on. But we need to have a lot of things in place in pre-production, so that once we go into production, we have a plan that's been approved, because we're going to stick to that plan, and we're going to stick to it very, very, very tightly. Because in animating, once you go into animation and production, start drawing stuff, going back and doing big changes, that's going to be laborsome. That's going to take a lot of time, and usually that is where things can kind of like even break down. So I can't stress enough, pre-production, super important, and that's where you need to kind of like invest and put a lot of time in.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
In pre-production as well, it's one of those things. It's a phase of the production that how do you explain this? Is that it's hard. It's very, very hard to explain. Yeah, in there, when you start off these kind of productions, it's very hard to show the client or help the client visualize the end product. So inside of the pre-production phase, there sometimes can be moments where you don't fully make the right decision, because you can't see too far into the future. And what can happen then is that you maybe delay some really important decisions, and they end up then, because of the indecision earlier, become later in the process, and that can cause real problems. So the idea in pre-production is to try to talk openly and talk with each other as early as possible in the pre-production phase, and that will save you so much time in the future, and the decisions you will make will be better the earlier you make them. So yeah, just a quickie.
Yeah, I completely agree, and can't stress enough what you just said, Dermot, there, that working closely together and collaborating, not just throughout the whole process, but especially in pre-production, where we're actually setting things up, is very, very important. So
fail to prepare to fail. Isn't that what they say?
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah. It's a really good way of saying that. Yeah. but yeah, I'm quickly going to move on because I think you know, we can stare at this process for longer as well. But I'm going to try and go into some concrete examples. So I'm going to talk about start off talking about an quite iconic logo animation we did for DNA, the provider. And the interesting thing about this is that it's still around. It's still being used today. The logo animation for DNA, 2.5 seconds. It's been around since I think 2015-16 when we actually did it. But we were not briefed to make a logo animation. We were actually briefed to make ident animations and create a visual story to coincide with the brand identity of DNA that they were like renewing at that point in time. So they had the logo and they needed the logo to move, but they wanted to go beyond that. And there was already like this story created for where the DNA logo comes from and how there was like this whole very intriguing backstory to it. And we wanted to, or we were asked to make like three kind of longer versions of this story and create that story with movement. And we were given these grids as kind of like the starting point. And based on this, we started working on the form studies. And we are now in pre-production. So what we actually did is we took like this like R&D approach to this, where we took those grids and started figuring out for ourselves how we could make it move and what could be interesting. And these are just some early sketches. Nothing basically is moving at the moment. It's just pixels. And slowly but surely, gradually, we're actually starting to see some sort of pattern, some sort of story forming here, some interesting shapes. More of the same. Then we even kind of like started playing around with a little bit of procedural animation, just as a kind of, could this be something interesting here? Looking around at this a bit more, maybe realizing that no, this is not the way to go. This is too hectic. This is not right for this. Could be maybe used for something else. That's the code. And then actually ending up at an early animatic. And again, we're still in the pre-production phase. So these are animatic that we presented so that to have like a consensus on that we are on the right path. And this is what an early animatic looked like. Obviously, we had touched upon something interesting because we kind of got the go ahead to take that early animatic and move forward into production and start moving forward with that. But of course, there was still a long way to go. And these are now the final 15-second films that we actually ended up making. So I think what we can see there, and actually, if you look back at some of the early studies that we actually did, like thinking about forms and shapes and the movement, I think quite a bit of that actually we can find that back in the final films. So it's kind of like interesting to see that all the research that you actually do, a lot of that you will end up using again. Then another aspect which I would like to just quickly touch upon is sound design. In this example, super important. If without the sound, you know, that would not be as interesting as it is the final. So that is also something that's very important, and something that we can luckily nowadays do also like in-house. We've been working with a lot of sound people throughout the years, but now actually we have the possibility to also do sound production in-house, which again offers a lot of possibilities, not just to us but to our projects and to our clients. But going back to where I started off, the thing that we still see and that's still being used today is the final 2.5 second logo ident, which came, you know, to be through this whole project. So let's have a quick look at that. Good. So if that was something that was more motion graphics based on shape, that was made to move, brought to life, and we built a story. I'd now like to turn my attention to another project we did quite a while back, but it was done for the Cancer Society of Finland. We did a short film for them called Under the Sun, and the basic brief for the background to this project was that of course sunscreen, sun protection, very important, a very important message to get out to workers who are going to work throughout the summer, work outside. That was the starting point, and this was the target group, reach people who work outdoors in the summer, and telling like them the story of the importance of sunscreen. So we had initial script. We're in the pre-production phase. We started working on different storylines, writing out scripts, and trying to find the right mood style for this. So we actually were playing around with the thought of making it in like a Nick Natterton style, like kind of old school animation, which seemed like a good idea at the beginning. We thought about it some more, had some discussions with the client, and they kind of liked it as well, but there was still something missing. And then somebody kind of looked back to the early kind of youth and found, of course, He-Man and the Spiders of the Universe, iconic stuff, G.I. Joe, and that's where we then found something that we thought was really interesting. That client kind of was intrigued, and we started working out style frames. This was an early style frame of the sun god and his third eye that was going to shoot out the rays of the sun, kind of attack the earth with the rays of the sun. And then after some more iterations, we ended up with this figure, and I think we're starting to be on kind of character, on style here already. And again, production process, we're in the pre-production, we're doing some roughs here, sketching, and this is just a short sequence. You'll see it soon when I show the full film, but this is how an animator is drawing characters, making early rough sketches of the different scenes, of the movement, It's where it all starts kind of come together. And here we already have some coloring. We have some elements that have been actually are quite nearly finished. Here we see the bodyguard flexing. We have this one scene in there, like where we had some live action elements. So this is shot against a green screen. Some 3D. We needed a sun umbrella in there, so we also added some 3D in there. So this is also a really nice mix of different styles that coming together. And at the end of the day, we have a final film, which I'm going to show to you right now. Sorry about that. Why isn't it playing? Can you see this now? For some reason, can you see this, guys?
It's not playing.
Okay, yeah, I'll play it just a second. Sorry, I don't know why it. Now it should be playing. Okay, so let's see if I can get back to the actual. Sorry about this. Can you actually turn off my screen, Lena? Sorry. Yes, thank you.
Just let me know when you're ready.
Yes, sorry.
That's all right.
I don't know why.
There is always something in the webinar.
There's
it's a live show, so anything can happen.
Hello.
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 Hello. So,
Misha, are you still going on?
Yeah,
Do you want to...
Yes, actually.
Yes.
I was just thinking it's almost going to be 10:15, so I'm just trying to like, how much more can people take from me? I have some more cases just to that's more just like just to show and tell.
Yeah,
so
I think
really
that's
like...
yeah, because I think it's I think people will find that interesting. So if you have more coming, just let me know when I will give you the screen, So
I'm ready now. I'm ready now.
okay,
So,
perfect.
yeah.
Here you go. The screen is
Okay.
yours.
Thank you. Now, for some reason, okay. Yeah. So let's have a look at some more work that we've done. It's like a kind of like a broad. There's some motion graphics cases, motion design cases. There are some 2D animation, some 3D animation. So,
Misha, please share your screen so we can see it. It sounds interesting.
Yes, but the thing is, can we go back one step, again, because again, my cursor, there's something that happens and then my cursor
It's always
disappears.
yes.
Let's see.
We'll switch ones.
Oh yeah, here we go. Here we go. Share screen. And now, can you now? Is it now?
It's not there yet. Go ahead, try again.
Again, my cursor. There we go. But now my presentation is gone. Oh, this is. I don't know where it goes. There's something very interesting that happens.
The platform hasn't been my friend for the past few days.
Yeah, I kind of understand. Let's see. I think we here somewhere. No. There we go. Okay, so now I have it there. Let's see. Can you see this?
Yes, perfect. Go ahead.
Great. Yeah, so I'm just gonna run through some examples of more of our work, and then I guess this is more like I'm gonna show more and talk less. So starting off with the Flow Festival.
Get the sauce in it. What you get is so authentic. Oh, I'll treat you so right. Oh, I wanna treat you so right. Oh, I wanna treat you so right. Oh, I wanna treat you so right.
Yes, so that was Flow, who we've been working with for 5 or 6 years, I think, and are actually working with at the moment as well. Let's see what happens with this year's festival. Hopefully it can maybe go on. Let's see. Then another one from very recent times. We did this visual identity for the Gloria Fashion Show. Again, a very interesting project where we were giving a lot of creative freedom, and the end result, of course, is stunning. But this is, I think, something that's very good to remember as well when we talk about screens and we talk about animation. We tend to forget the bigger screens. We tend to think about, we have the TV, we have the digital channels, we have digital out of homes, but we tend to forget about the very important places where people encounter contact through a screen. I'm talking events. Flow is a good example of that, but I'm also talking about conferences. So everywhere where you have a screen where you can show movement, that is a place for you to show your brand or to tell the story of your brand. So I think that's good to remember. So Yes. And then moving on to some more, I think we kind of like put this in the explainer basket, which is a kind of like a genre where we tend to use a lot of animation. So when you need to explain or introduce a service or something like that, that's usually where you kind of like think of doing it through animation, which is a great choice. And this was also an example that you saw some stuff of a bit earlier.
Introducing Celebri Model Checker. Combine different disciplines, one model. Walk through a combined model in the smoothest 3D navigation in the construction industry. Classify. Tag, label, and structure models in ways meaningful to you. Enrich your model by adding additional data. Check. Find flaws with intelligent, in-depth, automated model checking. Benefit from a wide catalog of rule sets designed to suit your every need.
Is this all 2D, Misha, or does it include 3D work?
Communicate issues in your project and share with stakeholders, creating an effortless workflow. Combine, classify, check, and communicate with Celebri Model Checker.
Sorry, Dermot, I couldn't quite hear you.
Did that include 3D animation as well for some of those transitions?
Actually, that I think we're talking somewhere around 2.5, but not really
Okay.
3D. No. Yeah.
Okay. It's nice transitions.
And then here another one of these kind of like explainer animations where we have another service, App Dynamics, and this was one we actually created together with CFX. So look at that one.
People, services, and machines are more connected than ever before by the code you write and the experience it creates. That's why you can't afford to react to performance problems. You have to proactively solve for them. But how do you do that in today's complex application environment? With Cognition Engine from AppDynamics Cisco, an AI-powered solution that drives IT decision-making and business forward. Cognition Engine uses machine learning to understand your environment and create dynamic baselines for application health. Issues and anomalies are automatically detected, giving you real-time insight into performance problems, while AI surfaces potential resolutions to both accelerate decision-making and help you avoid war room conflicts. With Cognition Engine, businesses can finally build a proactive approach to performance monitoring that connects business and outcomes.
Yes. And now I'm going to show you a couple of like some 3D work that we've done. These were actually made for Instagram, so that was very like format specific, and I think these turned out really nicely. I just realized I haven't had sushi in a really long time, so that was. Yeah. And this was part of a four kind of like animation series highlighting these new services and then the core city markets. So So again, to highlight that you know, we work across all screens, all media, and they all have their kind of own laws and things you need to consider. Then some 2D animation. This is one of those projects where we got we had or there was an illustrator who had made illustrations, and then we got the possibility to make these move, bring them to life. This is the last year's Porjats and Raminiemi who's done these very nice illustrations. And I think this is also a good example of where you can bring a lot of life to characters with very limited movement. So and do a lot with rhythm and bringing in some elements in the background like the confetti and stuff like that. Alepa, which we've been fortunate enough to work on for quite a bit. We were approached to do a redesign of the characters that are the main characters in these films, and after that we worked with them for quite a long time extensively, which has been really nice to see that once you create these kind of like characters that really resonate with the audience, that you know, the feedback from testing and from like, you know, seeing like how well they you know, grab your attention, that it's been really positive. And so it's been really nice to work on these, and these are nice short stories with like nice visuals, and this was the launch for the Korttelitoive application, and well, I guess most of us know what Korttelitoive went on to do, like win multiple awards. And so, but again, nice to see that there's still longevity in advertising as well, that you can actually make series, and you can stick with a concept for a long time, and actually just tweaking it all the while a little bit, like the stories and the messages, and just seeing that it works from like campaign to campaign, which is really nice.
Toivo suosikkituotteesi lähialepaa Korttelitoiveella Facebook Messengerissä. Kerro toiveesi käyttäjälle Korttelitoive.
Yes. And this is also a pretty interesting case, because we've gone on to create assets and stuff for games and stuff like that. So it's been very nice working with that. And then actually I'm going to come to towards the end of my speech here. I'm going to end it with one of the biggest projects we did actually last year, where we got again to work with an iconic brand, and you know, we're given a very interesting task of creating or giving life to chocolate bars, which I don't know, that's when you get presented with a brief like that, you just kind of like you just go all warm and fuzzy inside, because it screams animation, and it's just this is what we're kind of like really geared to do, what we love doing. This is one project, and that's why I'm going to end with it, because it's going to be kind of like a transition where I'm going to hand over the word to Dermot. But this is a project where Boutique and CFX came together, and extensively we worked together, where Boutique took like on the role of doing character design in the pre-production phase, and then as we moved into production and post-production, we kind of gradually, it was kind of like a handover then to CFX, to their team. So a very, very nice example of where we've been able to join forces and kind of like use our strength on one project, and luckily there have been a lot more since this one, and hopefully will be a lot more in the future. But yeah, singing and dancing chocolate bars. I mean, how can you go wrong? Yes, you can, obviously. But I don't think we did. I think we made a really, really nice piece from this one, and yeah, these don't come along too often, but maybe we'll see this one being continued also in the future. So I'm gonna play this, and I guess after that hand over the word to Dermot. But I hope that you kind of got something from me talking about animation and trying to open up the world of animation, and maybe even the possibilities of animation. I'd love to continue talking with you guys. So if you're interested, please send me a message. You can find us at btq.fi. You can find us, of course, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. So we should be quite accessible. And thank you guys for your time. I'm going to press play now, and then Dermot is going to take over after that.
Cheers, Misha.
Ethän unohda meitä
Poikki! Kuule Kisme! Mä tiedän, et sanotuksissa. Sä oot kyllä aika vehkö pikkupatukas. Mulla on vaan isot pohvelit. Patserpatukat. Mitä hyvää?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Misha. That was great. And congratulations on you got the Voitto prize for that ad. So congratulations on that.
Did we?
Yes, you did. I was at the gala, so.
Okay, I was there as well, but yeah.
At least
okay.
you were on the short list. I saw the.
Yeah, we were on the short
there.
list. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, we were on the short list. We didn't really reach all the way, but we were on the short list, and that is great enough to be recognized. I think that's always nice.
And clearly for me, you were the winner.
Yeah, I would have to say that I thought we had a really good shot at claiming that one, but you know, it's always, you know, there's so much great work. It's very hard to compete, but I'm happy that we have a lot of great production companies and studios that do a lot of great work in Finland. It's good for all of us.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But thank you, Misha and Dermot. Let's see if we can go through your set with no technical issues, but I'm doubting. Now you can try and share your screen. I gave you the. Yay! It's working. Perfect.
Awesome.
I was a bit worried.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. All right. How's the audio quality? Because I'm circling via New York, I think.
It's not perfect, but I think it's all right. We can hear you all right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on my phone via New York. So keeping things interesting. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for Misha for that little insight. Some stuff I've never seen there as well. Some insight I've never got as well, which is quite nice. So Thanks for that. But yeah, the Patokat is a nice seg into how our collaboration has started working. It's been really good. Because the guys did a lot of the really important pre-production stuff, the character design, getting inside the minds of chocolate bars. Although I wish I had been involved in that, because that means R&D and samples, eating a kilo of yam to get inspired. But yeah, I'll come back we can talk a little bit more about the Patokat project a little bit later. But I guess I'll start by introducing myself. I am Dermot Gallagher. I'm an Irishman. I've been working on VFX for about 16 years now at this point. Come a circular road via computer games, actually. But I've been working as the VFX artist for a long time, as a creative on the advertising side and games marketing as well, animation director and director as well with live action, not just pure cinema, pure CG. Usually the spots that I will direct are very heavily VFX heavy, post-production heavy, or animation heavy. But yeah, so I know all the different lenses that a spot can be seen through, which makes hopefully my experience quite useful for clients. The ability to kind of see how a script can shape and form and make a good spot, or how a script can be impacted by VFX pipeline or timelines, or what actually could be a good idea to get lots of clicks or views on whatever channel you want to attack, I guess. So at the minute now, I am the head of studio creative director of CFX. CFX are the VFX and post-production wing of Cocoa. We're a studio of around 10 people, specializing in creative and technical approaches to VFX and 3D animation. We try to do as much in-house as possible, and that's usually almost everything we do. So we've got a really good team. The way we've built the team is that because it's kind of interesting in VFX and CG to be really, really, really good. And all those guys that work on the Hollywood movies, they all specialize in a very specific area of animation. There'll be a guy who just does fire effects. There will be a guy who just does materials, making concrete look like concrete. But the way that the Finnish market is that we have a team of generalists, but we built it in such a way that each of us have our own specialization. So there is we have an animator, pure character animator, who her peak, her specialization is in the ability to bring characters to life. Everyone can do a little bit of that, but she's really strong. Then we've got the guy who's really good at simulations and particles and making all those kind of fire effects or the little dust effects that you might get. The classic make my porridge look nice and warm by adding some fake steam because it didn't look good on set. Those kind of things. So we have specializations, but we're a team of generalists that can do everything and anything. That makes us really, really powerful and really. I'm a big rugby fan, so I like to think of our team as that scrum, when you get down, crouch together and push together at once to make. That's kind of us. We all have our specializations, but we all come together to make a formidable team. But yeah, CFX is part of Kokwa. Kokwa is the live action production company that everyone probably knows, hopefully knows. And we've kind of grown out of the need for the live action guys to integrate all sorts of visual effects and animation and post-production needs, because in every single spot that goes through our house, every one of them will come via us for something. There could be, it can range from chroma key, shooting against green screen. It could be, there is it needs cleaned up. There's like logos that shouldn't be there, for branding purposes. Get rid of those. It could be beauty touch up. If we do some beauty spots for like L'Oreal, there's lots of touch ups on the face and the eyes, and can you make the mascara brush look more delicious and less clumpy, whatever it might be. So almost every single spot that goes through Kokwa comes via us in one form or another, and that means that we have to be fast, essentially, because we do a lot of stuff fast, accurate. And when we get to the process, and why I think we're a very formidable team, it's about the process that we use and how the benefits of being in-house with a production company and being involved really, 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 really early, without the considerations of budget or working with third-party vendors where you're trying to work on deals and money, or then they're off-site. We're on-site. We're together. We're a few rooms down. We can the DOPs, the directors, can come into us. We talk ideas. We solve problems super fast. Come up with smart solutions super fast. And it really makes us a really formidable team in general, the whole Kokwa group. But and what we add as a post-production team. This is a reel. This gives you a little overview of some of the stuff we have done in the recent past. We can go through some of these different projects in a little bit, but you can see that there's a wide range of different things. And this is only a little bit of what we do. As I say, there's like almost every project comes through us in one form or another. But this is the animation, the pure animation related stuff that I pull for you guys to have a look at. Characters, CG, set extensions, building virtual worlds, cleanup, particle simulations, completely CG boats, little cheese monsters, adding some CG food, lots and lots of different things, product, ice cream. If anybody has any ice cream, let's talk ice cream, samples. So yeah, lots and lots of different projects. So that's the general loop. I'll give you an overview. So by the end of this, I hope that we'll have tickled your fancy about 3D animation, about the possibilities, maybe trigger a few ideas of what is possible. But most importantly, I think, and I think Misha talked about this as well, is that, and even our producers talk about, they refer to our studio as Mordor. And I think when they say that, I know they mean it lovingly, is that what we do is quite magical and hidden behind the screens. And usually the guys that make it are very quiet. They're a very different type of guy, that they don't like to go around shouting about themselves. So the whole process is a bit of a mystery. And today I'd like to open that up a little bit to show you that there's logic to it. There is magic, and a lot of it is handcrafted. But we take a client step by step through the whole process to make sure that they know what's happening, when we want them to give their input, when we really need their input, and how we can get the best project possible. So I guess the starting point, and I know Misha talked a little bit about this at the start as well, but I want to just talk about animation in general from my point of view, because it's a huge, wide-ranging subject. It's totally subjective. I know a lot of my own personal projects and art that I would do is very different from what any client will do, but that's because it's so subjective. But that's totally fine. That's important though to remember when we're building a concept at an early stage, obviously, because we have to think about how we're going to approach each of the target demographics that we're going for. So if it's Patukat, who are we aiming at? Are we aiming at the eyeballs of kids but the ears of the adults, or are we targeting specifically those angry tweens between 12 and 16? Who was it? What style? Let's think about their subjectivity, their kind of mindset, and then we can actually build an effective spot. But the big thing is then, what is 3D animation beyond that? Misha's showing you the brief was, let's talk about animation. Misha just showed you about 60 different spots, and every one of them had a different look and feel. And it's the same with 3D animation. And 3D is a bit like animation as well. It's like it means everything and nothing. Because these days, when you talk about 3D animation, you might hear them disguised as motion design or motion graphics or CG or visual effects. All these different phraseologies that people use depending on how smart they want to sound, or how or the kind of tone of voice that their studio or the agency might have, or whatever it is. They all essentially these days have all kind of swirled into a big soup, and they mean everything and nothing. They mean 3D animation, but they've got many tentacles, and they kind of but they all mean the same thing. So this is 3D animation. This is a phone, a close-up of a phone we made for Airbus. It's 3D animation, but it also could be considered motion design, because it's the camera movements. We do lots of interesting things where we ripple and change the textures of the phone. So it can be anything. Then this is 3D animation, but it's also could be classified as motion graphics. You'll see that quite common on Instagram. Okay, what is this? Motion design. Yeah, there's got motion design. It's more design based. It's more illustrative than pure CG product based or 3D stuff. So okay, whatever you want to call it, it's still 3D animation. This is 3D, but it's illustrative. It's more design based. So what do I call you? Do I call you motion design? Whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. So don't be fooled by these phraseologies that people throw out. They're all one and the same. And again, 3D, but it's motion design. It's illustrative. It's what are you? I don't know. It's 3D animation. But then there's also, we start to get into this, and this looks 2D, but it's actually 3D. So we don't call this 3D, we call this more motion design. So, but it's still got 3D animation. This is very difficult to do in 2D animation. So we build all these particle simulations and build the world in 3D. So this is more motion design. Then something that Misha showed you. We did a collab. This frame, you wouldn't think it, but this was 3D. These little lines, the particle effects going towards to create this tunnel is a weirdly complex little thing. It's quite surprisingly odd because of the rendering it 2D, trying to make it look cell, but it's 3D animation. Then we've got this. This was the opening credits for the Bullets TV show. This was 3D animation, but was it? Because it was based on photographs. But what we actually did is that we built a dummy 3D version of Krista Kossinen's face, put the photograph onto the 3D geometry, and then we kind of made that 3D geometry dissolve. So that's motion design, visual effects, whatever you want to call it. I don't mind, but it shows you again that there is no firm identity for what 3D animation is. It can be many, many, many things, and it's hidden in places that you might not even expect, which says, the range, the rainbow of possibilities are huge, and everything is possible. Now, this is more visual effects, or is it CG? Visual effects, we would say visual effects because it's got live action. The little Valtteri Bottas on the chair was shot against chroma, so that's introducing live action to it. So yeah, that pulls it more into the definition of visual effects. However, everything around it is obviously 3D, built in 3D. It's got animation, like the animation, but it's not, the holographic stuff is more visual effects as opposed to 3D. Again, whatever you want to call it, is all 3D animation. So what I'm trying to say is that animation and 3D animation is freedom. It's the ability to do whatever the hell you want, and that's quite liberating. It's also quite kind of scary when you start off, because you have to try to define your parameters of what is doable or what you are trying to achieve. But at the end of the day, it's complete and utter freedom, and that should be the main takeaway today for me, is that whatever you dream up, we can do it. It's possible, and that's really liberating. Well, I will say this is, I remember at college, one of the most profound things that I learned, and I think the guy said it, the lecturer said it in a flippant way, but it stuck with me for all these years, was that when you start, because when you start a project, don't be thinking outside of the box, is get into the box and give yourself 6 constraints. Otherwise you'll end up going too crazy. So when you start a project, yes, everything is possible. But then when you try what you want to achieve and what you want to do, then you start to try to build yourself into the box by, what is our timeline? Boom. Who is our target market? Boom. Try to build yourself, and then you get focused, and then we can go forward into production and make something really, really cool. So a few examples of how animation gives you freedom. So this was a spot we made for The Voice of Finland a couple of years ago, something like that. So this looks pretty nice. The brief was quite bonkers about this kind of racing, but we wanted it set in kind of an American city. And this is one of those constraints. We couldn't shoot the 4 guys, fly them to America to set up and shoot there. We couldn't, we had to shoot in a studio. We had to shoot in a certain studio where we could get access to the cars, all this kind of stuff. So we were able to build a 3D world, comp the guys in, add all these special effects, and make a really, really fun spot. Another spot we made is we drift. We want to see into the future. A lot of companies do this, thinking about in the future, what is the possibility. So you try to build a CG world there. Okay, but we're going to shoot in a cold studio in Herttoniemi. But it's still possible. We use our magic and we build a brand new world, make something very fun, very engaging, and very, very free. You can see the lengths we went to. So basically, the only thing that existed was the light sources, and obviously the people. Even the chair we had to replace the chair because it didn't exist in the future. We didn't know what that chair was going to be like, so we had to try to improvise on the set. Freedom, total and utter freedom. And then there's a situation like this, and there's lots of things out there. Believe me, everything you watch on TV, there's usually something. But for example, this is a spot from a couple of years ago we did. But these blueberries, when we shot the spot on the set, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, this looks great, beautiful." Then we got it back to edit. Food is always tricky. Oh my God, these blueberries don't look delicious enough. Oh, they look lots of blemishes. Oh, look how the light's catching them. Okay, we'll make you some blueberries. No problemo. So it's everywhere. Freedom. And also, animation is made in a dark room by us nerds and is weatherproof, which is very useful in Finland. So, and it's also quite useful these days when no one can leave their dark rooms at all. So our studio's been working away as if nothing has ever happened. Quite happy. Unleashed our superpowers. And here, for example, is an example of how the weather, we can fake the weather. So the brief for this one was about it was in the middle of winter. It was coming up to New Year. It was wet. It was miserable. But the start of the new year is that time of year where people start to get healthy, where they start to make New Year's resolutions. So how do you make something bright and beautiful and tasty in December, January of Finland? So what we did, and this is something that we've been wanting to do for a while, but we actually, that skyline of Helsinki that you see is CG. It's a 3D version. So we're able to, combination of drone footage and exporting data from the open source map, we're able to pull a 3D version of Helsinki for this. Then we were able to the difference between using stock footage, because stock footage is, if you want any kind of connection with the audience, stock footage is not the way to go. You can tell there's something innate. A lot of people I would guess, could tell that use the stock footage. And these stock footage, they're never quite what you want. And so the idea that we wanted to show the time lapse of Helsinki, we couldn't find the right weather, we couldn't find the right position. So we made a 3D version. We made a daylight and sky time lapse, and we were able to get all the nice lighting effects and shadows inside of the city moving inside of the 20-second spot, and then obviously all the food and simulations on top of that. But it was I was quite proud of our guys and the approach that we ended up coming with this one. It was really cool. And also we can make intergalactic stuff. Total freedom, whatever you want. Shooting star, no problem. Moon, you want to see the moon up close? Okay, cool, no problem, we got you. And just small details on this one, for example, and this is the benefit of having nerds on your team. And I use the words nerds absolutely lovingly because I am one. But the moon, the stars, these are all mapped completely astrologically correctly because the best is not good enough. We can't approximate. It's funny the depths that people go to. So my personal mantra about the approach to animation and about the mindset of clients and agencies should be that impossible is just the limit of your imagination. So there shouldn't be, you should never let any kind of thought cloud your idea. That's what I'm trying to say. If you think it's a good idea, then we can make it happen. And that should be the most important thing that people are thinking when they're concepting up, because that's where the magic happens. You know, if you start already limiting yourself too early, then you're going to end up just making genera film, something very bland, a little bit soulless, a compromise. No need to compromise. Dream it up. Give me a call. We'll make it happen. Also, the next most important thing is these days the overwhelming amount of content we're seeing. On every time you pick up a phone, you go onto TV, you go onto your iPad, whatever. We all know this. It's overwhelming. It's everywhere. So the big thing is how to actually capture the imagination of your audience, how to engage with them more, how to catch their attention inside of that 3-second chance that you have when they're scrolling through their content before they flick their thumb. And the answer is in being more creative and making something that's not just generic. And unfortunately, there's a lot of content out there, and there's a lot of people making it, and that's fine. That's all good. Everyone has their own needs and stuff, but it's all been put into this static white noise, and because they all, not all, but a lot of it tends to look the same. And the problem is, like, you can make a beautiful film and engage, but that takes time. You know, the film that you make with a brand film, for example, which has got a really good message, that will take an investment of, like, 1 minute, 2 minutes of a viewer. You obviously can't set that up inside of 3 seconds, but what you can do is with a very visual approach is that you can grab them instantaneously. What the who is who? Okay, and then you can engage a little bit more. So that's really important. You have to be creative. You have to be creative to stand out these days. You have to step away from the beige, let's say, come to the pink side. Now, saying that, I was trying to think about this. Sounds a bit cheesy, the journey of trust, but it's a really important part of what we do. I believe is that we know it can be hard to form a vision early when we start a project. That's the honest truth, is that you won't get, until we get to the end, you won't get a clear vision of what we're going to make. And it will go through a few iterations and stuff. And no, the thing is, we'd say about that is that the trust comes from, a lot of it will have to come from the client or the agency, that you need to have a partner or a company that you can trust will be able to execute and your idea. And then as production people, it's our job then to kind of guide you through that journey, and at every stage explain to you well, show you the milestones that we want to hit, and try to open up the process as clearly as possible. Also, because then there's a lot of technical stuff that we will talk about. All these we can talk about later, and this is the kind of the Mordor stuff, and sometimes that can be overwhelming. All you want is like your chocolate bars to dance, and if I'm giving you a reason, oh, we're a little bit late today because we've got some problems with EXR extrapolation or whatever the hell, wow, okay, no, that's not. Let's simplify that. We're having a little bit of problems with putting the skin texture on the guy. It's not quite right. We'll be coming back soon. So a big part of my approach and our studio approach is that we talk honestly and talk often. And this comes back to what Misha talked about, actually, about the process of pre-production, the importance of pre-production. And from that, we have to think about talking early also. If you have a feeling, and this is what I mean by talking honestly, if you have a feeling at the early stages that I'm not quite sure about the look of his hat, or the facial expression of, say, that one of the chocolate bars is a bit odd. I don't think that is, it doesn't sit right with me. The earlier you say that, don't let it sit and marinate in your brain. Say it early, honestly. We won't take it personally. This is good. The earlier, the better. And then we can discuss it out, because the later those changes coming, the inputs come, it can cause chaos. And at the end of the day, if we give you the chance to make those opinions and make those, okay, is everyone happy? And we start to move forward, it's going to cost you, because it can be, we call them hand grenades. Well, I call them hand grenades. But when someone has an opinion that should have been caught a long time ago, and the hand grenade comes into the room, and you're like, oh no, this is going to break everything. So talk honestly, open up. We always try to open up the channels of communication as early as possible. Call me at any point. Hey, I don't think this is working. What can we do? Can we change that color of blue to a slightly more greenish blue? Whatever the hell it is, early, often, and honestly. That's a really important part of the process. And then this is where the trust comes in, is that, we will take you to the end. That's not a problem. Because it's one of those things that when you see at the start of a project and you see all these weird scribbles, how the hell do we expect the client to see it the way we see it with our experience? Not everyone has the same level of experience, or we can look at a scribble, like looking at the matrix, and go, okay, I know exactly what that's going to be, how that's going to come together. But then, a client doesn't have to. That they're not expected to. But we, as a production company, we are expected. It's our absolute responsibility to help communicate with them, so they build that vision early. So take, for example, this project we've done with Misha and the guys at Boutique. They did the character design for this Nosto character. So very early, the client is looking at this going, okay, yeah, I see. I know what my ATM looks like. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, it's going to have a face. Okay, great. Okay, so here is, let's make this big cash. Okay, grand. Then we start to build the camera movements, prevising how the spot might start to look, and we send this version to the client. We're like, hey guys, check this out. This is the first version. This is what the spot, and they see this and they're like, what the heck is this? So our job is to no, listen, this is how the camera moves. This is this is how we build in the structure of the spot, the timing. Can you see that 4 shots is too much. We're going to have 3 spots if we want to be able to focus on the girl's face, spend more time at the ATM, whatever it is. Then we're on set and they're still like, okay, still, I can see the girl and she's looking up at the rain and okay, yeah, and my ATM's going here. Us, as the studio, we're going, oh yeah, no, yeah, we could see it, it's going to be there, no problem. The client is thinking all the time, holy crap, what's this going to look like? But again, trust us, we got you. And then when we get to the end, it all sort of makes sense. We've seen this image from the start, but the client hasn't necessarily seen that. So it's our job to be able to show this in their mind, kind of build that in their mind as early as possible. So the next section, I guess, is, so we've got this trust idea that, it's a collaboration, and open communication is one of the biggest points. But the other big point, starting any project, is about setting expectations. How good something is going to look. What is the style? How realistic is something going to look? Because that's one of these things that we come up with quite a bit, is the people's expectations versus Hollywood movies versus TV shows. We can't deny that exists, and in a lot of kind of understandable naivety or ignorance, maybe, people don't fully quite understand the amount of work that goes into those high-end productions. There, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people can be working on these productions. And then when it comes to the Finnish advertising market, we've got one of the biggest teams in Finland that sitting at around 10 people. So there's a bit of a difference. So we can still achieve great results. That's not the question. But it's also very early. We have to establish the level of expectation, because we don't want to get down too far down the line where it's like, oh guys, I thought that there's going to be more hair on the bum of that dog or something. We can't get that far down the line. So at the start, we have to think about the expectation level. And also, this is one of my things with the team. I always say, we're not making realism. We are just not. In actuality, realism is a bit boring. If you ever look at an exploding TV, with a gun shoots it, what it looks like in real life, it's not like the movies. So we're trying to make something that is believable to the audience. And that actually means that we're accentuating reality sometimes, and most times actually. So believability and realism are slightly different things. Then there's like, when we talk about the scope of a project, and the scope kind of is time that we have to do it. It means the platforms that we're targeting, the market that we're hitting, and what we're trying to achieve. And they fall into realism. They fall into this, like, this could be translated as style versus what we're trying to achieve. But there's a kind of an algorithm to be had here between, the scope of the project, what we're trying to do, who we're trying to talk to, and also then this essentially means, what is your idea and what is your budget? What can we do for that budget? How can we make it really effective for that budget? How can we make the idea better for what you got? And that is the huge sliding scale. That the sliding scale of any kind of budget is relative to time, and time is relative to the number of people who can work on it, and it's also relevant, but it's massively relevant to the idea that we're trying to execute, and that can be anything and everything. So this is one of those things. Back to the freedom thing. Get your idea first. Don't think about budget, because there could be a solution at pay scale 1, pay scale 2, pay scale 3. There's different approaches, different ideas, different styles, different scope, different target market. There is no kind of there is no limit, and you should not be thinking about that, because we can kind of put that into our algorithmic machine and give you a production possibility for whatever budget you have. So thinking about that algorithm of scope, effectiveness, demographic, idea, budget, time, all that kind of stuff, what I found in all my experience is the key to a success of any project is a good team who have and are effective and work inside of a clear process, inside of their own studio, and inside of how they interact with their client, and good communication. And good communication is between the team and most importantly with the client and the agency. It's all about collaboration. I can't state that enough. We want you to be, as clients, to be involved as early as possible and all the time. We want to be there holding your hand, talking we should be on the same team. It's nothing more frustrating than someone resisting or not listening, or that's what we're in this together. Everyone's in it together to make the best film possible. So there shouldn't be friction. There shouldn't be. That's just so detrimental to any project. So absolutely, like, we have to find ways to get past that. And I get that, pressure, expectations or whatever, from agency and client side they're very, very kind of prescient, and the markets are quite challenging and stuff like that. But the way, that's not the way to let those infiltrate to your mindset on a specific project. It's open up collaboration. Your project will be better for that. So a good team with a good process and good communication. And now I'd like, in that regard, open up our production process. Now this I'm going to take one case and go through each of the individual steps of how we get from scribble to get to TV or screen or whatever you want to put it. The process, the production I picked is this little dude here, the Alter Money, mainly because he incorporates a lot of the different elements of 3D animation, visual effects. So I think it covers a lot, and I think it's nice. He's a nice way to explain it from a very familiar brand and a familiar character. So I think it was a good one to pick. I hope you enjoyed this, because it's, even when I was making it, I was like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. So anyway, so this is kind of, on the left, you can see it's not completely comprehensive, but it's basically in order, kind of our process. So there's a lot to it. And just, if you notice where animation is, so we're here talking about animation, but the animation part is such a tiny piece to a lot of these productions. It's all about animation, but it's a small piece. How we get there, what goes into the animation part, is huge. It takes many, many different disciplines and processes to get there. So Alter Money. So this is another project we did with the boutique and Misha's team, is that we were approached, and it was about, we were asked to redesign Alter Money character. So that in itself is a huge challenge. Taking any kind of super important, well-known IP and changing it so fundamentally on a brand level, on a kind of consumer consumption level, whatever you want to call it, there's a huge undertaking. So it started off with the guys at Boutique, and they did the character design. They reworked the features, try to work out what the client wanted in terms of how their new character of Alter Money was perceived by the audience. So they ended up with the little guy on the right, a little bit more Disney-esque, a little bit more rounder, friendlier, less human. You know, you can see on the guy on the left has almost got human hands and slightly more human proportions. He's got more Shrek-like features, whereas the new version is slightly more Disney almost, you know, a little bit more friendly, less ogre-like, and a bit more affable. So then we move into from the 3D side, because the guys on Boutique then gave us the schematics, the breakdown of the character, how he was going to draw. So then we have to try to convert him to 3D, and that's a huge part as well, because the 2D kind of sketches never quite translate to 3D because there's technical limitations and there's all sorts of weird stuff, you know, when you rotate heads and things like that. So we started looking at, you can see here the first iteration, his characterizations, his face is just a little bit weird. His proportions are just a bit off. We're trying to work out how he moves, how we can convey friendliness in his movement, you know. So this process of the concept and look development took quite a while, actually, because it's so important. Pre-production, early phases, like Misha said, you got to get this right before we go forward. So and it's cheap to do this here, you know. It's relatively, this is the time to do. It's relatively easy to iterate at this level because we're not worrying about too much. But again, we're still asking the client a lot. We're asking them to visualize. We're trying to, you know, the material will look different. The belt buckle will be shiny, you know. So we're trying to take it through the process. So then when we started to make the spot, we get into storyboarding. Storyboarding, Boardomatic, and Animatic are three very, very, very important phases of any production. Storyboarding, everyone knows what a storyboard is, but it can't be overstated how important that is. You know, it helps everybody. That's the first point where the client is going to start seeing their money translate into something real. So it's really, really important phase. You start to set the tone. Even the director starts to visualize in his mind what the shots are going to look like, how the product is going to be placed. All these kind of things go into that. So it's really, really, really important first phase, and that can go through iterations also, and that's fine. Again, it's the right phase to do it. It's pre-production. It's before we step on set. It's really, really important that we get that right because it influences so many things. The Boardomatic is essentially the storyboard put into the 40 seconds or the 30 seconds of the timeline, just to give you a feel for the length of the shots. And then after that, the Animatic is where we start to add in motion and transitions, and to try and get the effectiveness out of the storyboards, the timing correctly, the voiceover correctly. Is there too much dialogue? Do the shots have enough time on individual characters? That kind of thing. So super important phase. Then in the shoot, because this was a very heavy VFX project, the shoot was, took a lot of CG plates for the backgrounds for the character to be in. But the interesting thing about this one was that because we had a good pre-production, and we had finalized the character, what we actually did was we 3D printed a version of the character, and we were able to take him on to set. And that was really good for a few things. It was really good for framing the shots, so the camera knew where the focus point was, the size of him inside of the frame. So that was really good for the DOP and the director for that regard. It was also really good for the actors, so they had something to look at, even because when you're dealing with something so small like the little Ultramoney dude, if he is like too big or too small, then the eye contact from the characters or from the actors will be a little bit off. If they're a bit off, your spot will be a little bit off and a bit creepy. So it's important that the scale of the targets that the actors are looking at are correct. So that was really good for that. But also from an animation point of view, why he's gray is that allows us to see the light, how the light of the scene that's being shot in is interacts with the character. So we can see that there's where the shadows are, how the shadows move under his feet, where the light kind of comes more through his fingers than the bottom one. So it gives us a lot of information. And when we compare, we build the same model inside of the scene, and we're building the lighting. We can compare the real footage of the gray Ultramoney with an exactly the same version, and we can go, okay, the lighting is getting cool. And on top of that, what we do then is we shoot HDRI images on set. So we can shoot. We have a perfect nine. I don't know how technical you are, but 9 stops. So basically, we can create a high dynamic range image of a 360 of the whole set, so we can see where all the light sources were, where the dark spots were, and then we can use that again to help light the character. Then after the shoot, we have edit. And this is one of the milestones the really important milestones. Once we get to offline, this is where we start to see all the shot footage will be there, or indeed like just it'll be the first version that the client sees that we have to start locking something. And once then the edit gets locked, well, we can go through a couple of iterations of edit, that's fine. But once we then lock the edit, then after this point, changes start getting dangerous. This is where the hand grenades come in. So there's lots and lots of things that happen after this that will get broken if things start to get too messy. So this is milestone 1 after edit. So this is, I've skipped over 2 things that I'll quickly talk about. Maybe is after edit, we didn't, well, there's used in a couple of shots here, but usually after the edit, you will have, if there's a chroma in your shot, you would use that, or camera tracking. Camera tracking just means you have to build a 3D virtual versions of the camera movement, so you can put 3D objects in. But for this case, we didn't really have much of that too much. We had some for the scenes, but in terms of the character then, to be able to animate the character, now we have the storyboard, we've got everything shot, is we have to build a 3D version of the character that we can move. And that basically means giving him a virtual skeleton in every muscle kind of points that we can move. So everything that you can think of. So he's obviously got hips, he's got elbows, he's got finger joints, his ears can move, his mouth. We've rigged the hat because his jaw, his teeth, everything we need that will give us the ability to animate him realistic. Because especially when you're dealing with human characters, the motion or the movement has to be pretty realistic. We're very, very tuned in to differences. If a facial expression is off, we're very, very tuned into that. So we need the ability to be able to animate quite accurately, and that means quite a lot of work to build the virtual skeleton. And you can see here this little, well, you can't really see it, but even the eye contact, there's a little controller that the eye contact is so important. You'd be very surprised by if the eye contact is out by 4 pixels, how weird your spot can be. So then after the rigging, we're able to start to animate the character. We've got the skeleton, so we've got all these joints, the fingers, the hands, the knees, the hat, everything we need. All those blinking, the smiling, eyebrows. Eyebrows are very, very important to any facial expression. And then we move into, once he's animating, we move into the texture. Texturing and materials are so important. That gives it a real sense of tangibility, of realism. You know, that it feels like they're there. You want to pick them out of the screen and take a bite. So, and this is kind of what they look like. So we were really, at the start of the whole project, we were talking about the skin of this guy, because the previous skin on the last character wasn't quite what we had in mind. And I always liked human, the sensitivity that we have to human characters. So our approach was that we actually got these super high res, like kind of almost medical skin scans. And so we were able to use them to paint in like real details into the skin of the guy. So he's got pores, he's got moles, he's got little blemishes. You can see the highlights, when the highlights in the top right, just above his eyebrow, you can see the highlights of the skin getting caught by the lighting, that it looks real. You can see the actual grain and the pores and everything. And it's really important, because if you have something like a cartoon, which is the top kind of flat texture, it's going to look like, you know, it's not going to be realistic. So we went to the extra detail of adding in all these pores and blemishes. And this is what we see, these two kind of called texture maps, those kind of square images. That's what we see, because basically it's called unwrapping. So we flatten out the geometry. So it's like, because we can only deal with flat images that get projected onto the textures, or onto the 3D geometry essentially. So this is how we see it, and this is how the artist's skills come in. He's able to look at this flat, weird, unwrapped project, and you can see his ears are like, you know, the top parts are his ears, so they're all unwrapped weirdly like that. So they're able to look at this and paint in the detail, and then see it in real time, what it's actually going to look like when it's a real 3D object. Then we get into building the lighting and the scene. So this is a combination of a few things. So this is a combination then of adding the textures, of taking the lighting data from the shoot, building the virtual lights, the virtual scene, building the virtual surfaces that they're standing on and coming into contact with. So we need to build all that, recreate all that again, put the guy in. But now you can see that the textures all look a bit weird still. They're not, you know, the lighting's not correct. This is, again, part of the process. And these are the kind of points where a client will go, hey, what the hell? My guy looks so pink, or that yellow is a bit flat looking. What's going on there? Again, when we show this to the client, we explain, hey, listen, guys, this is what's happening. This is what's going to come next. This is what we're looking for your comic. Please look at the motion. Are you happy with that? Do you think that this captures the mind of your viewer that you're trying to get attention from? Does he embody the kind of the characterizations of alter money, whatever? So look at the right things. We're going to come fix that. So we built the lighting, and then also small details. What we do as well, for example, and it's in here, simulations, is that we made all the clothing in these renders are just 3D, but when it comes to it rendering, we render them as real cloth, so they get real cloth movement. If you look closely, you'll see like the cuffs and the hem of his little top will flutter when he jumps and moves and things like that. Then we'd render, and render takes a long time. It's a very tricky part of the process. It's a very technical thing. Usually it's something that the client does not have to worry about at all. You just have to make sure that, does things look right. But from our side, this is a real technical challenge, and one that when you compare like a studio versus freelancers, for example, and how we are able to, because we have a small render farm on our studio that we're able to use many machines together, and that just gives us extra firepower, because rendering high-end 3D stuff is very heavy. Like this scene that you're looking at now is we created a virtual lake scene. It's Finland. Everybody needs a lake scene and a jetty scene for summer. So we're creating a virtual version of this. And I mean, you're talking like one little animation can be days to render, things like that. So again, pipeline. And this is the kind of stuff where the decision making earlier in the process and at the right points are so important. Because if we get to the render phase and we render off the character and he looks really nice, and we spent like 4 days rendering stuff to get it all looking super good, and then the client goes, I don't like the way he moves. No! Well, sorry, mister, but you had your chances. I'm going to send you a new invoice because that's going to be heavy. So this is the importance of open communication at the right point. Really important. So then we get to the end when we get our final renders in. We get them composited, which means just balanced and kind of Yes?
David, can I sort of, sorry about the interruption. The audience is wondering, could you explain rendering for dummies? You hear that term often, but what does it really mean?
Yes, rendering is, how do you explain? That's a good question. Rendering is basically it's the final stage of the 3D process, and it's basically taking all of the 3D objects that are in your scene, like so the altar money, and all the assets that are needed to recreate the scene. So all the textures, the leather of the belt, the lace material of his shoes, the skin, the reflectivity of the eye, and trying to recreate all of the physical, the real world physical attributes of that scene to make something look as real as possible. So it takes into consideration the how light reacts inside of that world. So this scene, for example, has 5 light sources. It's got a sun. It's got it's got the reflection of a table. It's got the big pot behind him is causing the light to behave in a different way inside of this scene. And that's, it's different. Like, so in a dark room, light behaves differently. It's dark. In a sunny room, things look different. So you're basically feeding all of your assets into the scene, and then rendering is recreating that lighting setup as realistically as possible. I hope that makes any sense, but
Thank you, David.
I hope that makes some sort of sense. But it's basically, the recreation of What?
It does make sense.
Okay, cool. But yeah, it's recreating of lighting. But then that is very, very heavy process, because it's obviously very, very computationally heavy in terms of the technical side of things. Because you're trying to say that, for example, his eyes are shiny, so and then the skin has got this light called subsurface scattering. Because basically, when as a kid, if you put a flashlight to your hand, and you get that kind of red glow through your fingers, so you get that's called subsurface scattering, and you put that into the skin texture. So when it's rendering, every time the light hits Altermani's hand, it's thinking, okay, I should be transmitting this light through the fingers in the same way that torchlight does, to try to create that same effect. And it does that every time the light bounces and hits the table, hits the shoe, hits the lamp at the back. It's trying to do that all at once. And that's how we get shiny materials, how we get rough materials, how we get skin materials. That's all of that happens inside of the rendering. And as I say, usually that's nothing for the client to worry about. That's purely technical, but there's a lot of brain power and a lot of computer power goes into that. So all you tell us what you want it to look like, and we'll take care of all the nerd stuff. So that's lighting and rendering. And then there's compositing. Compositing is the final, very important stage, was just integrating the rendering into the scene, into the world. And then when we're finished, this slide hits too many points, because usually we get to the end of a project where, okay, that was heavy, and then we're straight into the next one. So, but we love it. It's good. So
I actually never saw myself as Mel Gibson, but you know.
Life-changing moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
True insight.
So that is the overview of the process. Just have a look at it one more time. Just you can see all of the different phases, all that happens. Now there's some stuff missing, some smaller things, but it's very, very loose, but that's the general overview. And obviously we build in the milestones, so storyboarding is very important for the client, animatic, very important for the client, shoot, very important, edit, super important. So in and around here, as Misha said before, pre-production at the early stages, you've got a lot of work, a lot of responsibility for the success of a project to be open, clear, and let's get everything early, because once we get into the business side of things, then dangerous. So that's the process, and that's the loose process. Every project is going to be different, but our process and the pipeline that we use never changes, because we've landed on this, and I've shaped it in terms of my experiences, the way we should be working to get things to get things really good and really, really well done in tight timelines. So the process can never change, because if we deviate from the process, we enter into freestyle, and I don't feel comfortable in freestyle, and nor should a client. So if you're ever talking to a production company, ask them about their process. It's a really important thing. If they're like, yeah, we just go with the flow and run away, that will cause you all sorts of problems in the end. If someone happily talks about the boring stuff of the process, and tells you, then you will feel secure. You will feel secure. And I take a lot to the point of annoyment of some of my team. I can't state how important the process is. So the project may change, but the process never does. There's storyboarding, there's the concept development, the look development, the modeling, being on set, all of these things in the right order, we get things done. Again, we start off with this project, for example. You can imagine when we're on set and it's just green. Oh no, we're building a big factory. The process, follow the process, we will get there. We'll take you on the journey. Patokat, the same thing, same principle. The guys at Boutique delivered us the concept art, an animatic with the characters moving. Okay, so we're still in pre-production. Then we go through all the same phases. We go into animatics, We build start building the words. Hey, how's the animation? We're on the journey of trust again. We're building the animations. Okay, what do you think? Oh, the capo should be a little bit more drunk. Okay, cool. Doomlay should be a bit more crazy. Okay, cool. Following the process. At the end, we get a super nice result because we've invested in each other's time and invested in good communication. Again, just wanted to show you a little bit about how we talked about the rigging of the Ultraman. He's a humanoid, so he's a little bit clear, but here you can see this is how we animate a chocolate bar. We have to give them basically lots of hips, but they've got a big long neck, essentially was the approach. So, and then again, follow the process. Let's get the animation correctly. Do you think there's enough bump and grind in Kismet? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Little bit more bump and grind. We got it. Okay. Then we end up with a lovely project. And the same process again for this weird thing that René Harlin asked us to create an octopus tentacle still in a shot glass. Exactly the same process. Storyboards, animatic, rigging the model, all the steps of the way. Is this how it moves? No. Okay, let's make it more cartoony. Okay, great. Process. Then we're into the nerdy stuff. How does a tentacle move? Sticks to the table. It's got the suckers that stick to the table. It's got the sliminess. It's going to generate some water, and then we end up with a beautiful, beautiful spot. Following the process, clear communication, and my team working their magic. So I hope I haven't twisted your melon, man, and that's what I've got. Happy to hear and answer any questions.
Here's actually one question now, and I think it's a really good question, a tricky one, but anyhow, about the minimum budget. So the question goes, can you give a rough estimate of a minimum budget for a professionally looking 15-second 3D animation for TV? Just some sort of rough figure. 15-second 3D animation for TV.
This is the thing is
like 5,000 or 500.
Can I try and answer this question, Dermot?
Yeah, feel free, Misha.
Yeah. I think it's impossible to give a rough estimate based on that on the specifics we've been given, because the thing is that everything affects everything. So we can say that a 15-second 3D TV commercial could cost anywhere between 5 to 50 or 60,000 euros. So
well, that's some sort of estimate at least.
But it's very large.
Yeah.
So what I would actually say is it would be good to open up I think both myself and Dermot, we've been talking about transparency, collaboration, and dialogue, and discussing things. So what we would love is to be involved early on. So if you have any idea, you already know, okay, I would like to go into TV, do a commercial, 15-second. I'm thinking 3D. Great. That's a lot for us to go on. That's something that we could actually start that dialogue together with you. And so what is the product? Do you have any assets already? Is there a visual? Is there anything? Does that all need to be created? Do you have a storyline? What's the message? So these are then like all the specifics, and once we start building that whole, that's where we start actually being able to give you a more how would you say, a more final price on doing it this way, using these visuals, this story. We would probably end up there, and then continuing on that dialogue, because this is what happens, I think, too often, is that you already have some scope or some something in mind. This is how much I have to invest, which is also a great starting point. So instead of asking
Yeah.
how much would something cost, I would actually go in and ask, hey, or just say I have a need and I'm willing to invest this much. Could you help me out?
I think that is a very good point. Just by saying, because that's the thing. The one thing I hope that people got an insight into is that the spectrum of the different styles and levels and complexities and simplicities of all the different types of animation. So to approach and say, I've got 20 grand, I'm hoping to hit this demographic on these platforms. I've got this loose idea. How can we make this as effective and as fun and cool as possible with this budget? And then we can go crazy and come up with some really, really effective ways to do it. I think that's not a lot of people take that approach, but I think it's so much better than and much more transparent, and this collaboration thing, it's from the start, it's so much more powerful than having agencies call up and say, hey, okay, we have X amount, we've got a loose budget, we're competing, and then people are there's this kind of hustle involved, and it's not you're not getting the best value directly for your specific need in any way by doing that. Because then you're going to get all these too many levels of compromise, and you're going to end up getting something wishy-washy that's not just not bang for buck as effective as it should be or could be, as opposed to just being open and saying, okay, what can we do? We really want to do this. How can we best do it? So yeah, definitely agree with Misha on that. That is a really interesting point.
Yes, thank you, Misha and Dermot. Are there any more questions? Go ahead and write them down under questions, or you can just press the hand signal and I will give you the platform. I think from my point of view, this was very, it was really interesting to sort of get behind the scenes and see what is happening before we see the actual product and the ad. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Yeah, because I think it's a big part of the mindset of people being able to like do more animation. Because if you look at the different markets across the world, you compare yourself to, I know it's Finns, so you always like to compare yourself to Sweden, but also to the likes of the UK and the Netherlands and Australia, places like that. I know there's slightly bigger markets and stuff like that, but they have huge animation industries and they use it very, very effectively. Those spots that you see on winning awards on like Ad Weekly and stuff like that, because they're not afraid. They go idea first, concept first. They're not another just gray spot of a guy standing at the jetty. They're capturing the eyes and the minds of the viewers, and that's idea first. It's idea fronted, and I think because they have a bigger market, of course, that means bigger budgets, but it doesn't mean that we can't do something as idea forward in Finland. We should be, because I don't know. You were at Voitegala, so just let's take that as a kind of a benchmark. You look at all the ads there, and which ones do you remember? You remember Patokat? You remember the effects winning ones? A lot. There's a couple of the story-based ones that were pretty good, don't get me wrong. But it was the ones that stick in your mind and grab your attention were the ones in the VFX and animation section. Maybe I'm biased, but I don't think so. I can remember two other spots. But I'm not saying they weren't as effective, but they're a slightly different kind of beast. but the ones that capture the eyes, and that's what our biggest challenge as marketers these days, capture the eyes and capture the mind with like seconds. And the way to do that is visually. You cannot rely on story to do that. It's all that has to be done visually. It's the same way, love at first sight. It's a visual thing. You don't know if this person's going to be an idiot or a darling, but love at first sight. It's about, oh, he's lovely, she's lovely. It's the same with advertising these days on the feeds and how people consume it. It's so instantaneous. You're looking for love at first sight. What? Oh, okay. Great. Pink and colorful and whoa, what is that? Why is this different? Why is there an octopus at the end of my jetty as opposed to something idea first, creative. Let's change the industry a little bit, because to be honest, and maybe I can get to say this slightly as an outsider who's worked in many different countries and in different fields, but I think there's a little bit, it's a little bit kind of not stale, but very, very. There's a lot of the same sort of stuff being pumped out, and I think there's a huge opportunity for more creative, idea forward spots and content in Finland for sure.
Thank you, Dermot. I think we don't have any more questions. So thank you for this, Dermot and Misha, both of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And if there are any more questions that come up or anybody has any thoughts, like I said, don't hesitate to contact myself or Dermot. We are here for you. And I mean, this is what we love to do. So obviously we love talking about it, and obviously we love sharing our expertise. So just reach out to us, and I guess like a 5-minute phone call, on, hey, I'm thinking about something like this. Is it possible? That would be, I guess, the best way to go about that. Just give us a shout. We'll help you out, and we can create great stuff together.
And if for some reason you cannot find Dermot or Misha from LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever, just send me an email and I will give you the details. But thank you everyone. And now that we are finishing off, please, after the webinar, give us feedback so we can do better next time and handle the technical difficulties. Every day is a day of learning. But thank you, Misha. Thank you, Dermot, and everyone. Have a nice day.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.